Hello, this is John, host of MGTow is Freedom. You know, being a man is not what everyone really thinks about. When I say everyone, I mean the standard idiot. If you look back at the thumbnail for this video, it shows a bunch of people giving Hitler the old salute. And there's one guy in there who isn't. Right? He's going his own way. He's made his own decision. That picture is just an interesting example of the life lessons that we learn as men, and also, especially as MGTOW. You know, men going their own way, making up your own mind. And to go from being a normal man or a socially acceptable member of the male, right, the male population, over to MGTOW, there's a lot of stumbling, falling that has to take place. A lot of crashing and getting back up. And as an example, I'm going to use my son, who today got a motorcycle for Christmas, went out, whipped around the yard, ripped around, and came back for a stop, then took off again and wiped out really well. It was a pretty awesome wreck. And, he laid there for a few minutes, smarted pretty good, and he got back up, got on the bike, kicked it over, and took off again. You know, that's an example of taking on something new, having a little success, and then having a good crash and a wipeout, and discovering that there's pain, right? There's a price to pay for going your own way and doing something that's hard and difficult that others don't do. And yeah, it keeps hurting for a while. It keeps fucking smarting, but you keep being a man. I think that's something that women don't appreciate. They think that being a man is easy and that it's all about our entitlement and that everything's fine. And women try and get on the man cycle. And they ride around a little bit and they crash all the time. And it hurts. It fucking smarts. And they don't want to get up and do it again. They want everyone to do it for them. They want everyone to do their shit for them. And that's the difference between a man and a woman. Now, as a socially acceptable, white knight, beta wimp male, they are expected to put out that Hitler salute and salute those feminazis, right? To fall right in line with everyone else. And it's easy. It's easy to be like everyone else because there's no social pressure. There's no expectation on the part of the conformist to do any thinking. It's all done for them. They're told what to do. They look around and they follow everyone else. And there's no pressure and no pain. For a man who wants to go his own way, he's first got to stop following their rules. Stop saluting feminism as the philosophy, and it's a damn poor one, but as the philosophy that's going to run his life. Right? The MGTOW, the man, the real man who's going to go his own way. He has to decide what way he goes. And no matter what way he goes, when he stops following feminism and starts going his own way, it's going to be against the tide. It's something different, and you've got to learn how to do it. Much like my son had to learn to ride a motorcycle, a lot different than riding a bike, right? It's a lot different than just walking on your feet. And it's a harder ride. And when you crash, it fucking hurts, right? So when you start being a MGTOW, start going your own way, when you decide to confront the feminists rather than let them shit on you, when they talk shit to you and you give it back to them and say, there's your equality, bitch, you're going to catch heat. You're going to catch flack. Right? You're going to catch hell. They're going to put you down. You've got to realize that that's a crash and it's going to hurt and it fucking stings for a while. But you get up and you get back on your fucking bike. And you start fucking going again. You give it a kick over. You know what you're doing. You're learning from your mistakes and you go with it. That's the difference between a man and a little girl. And that's just an example. It's just an analogy. Because how many men have you known? How many people have you known? They try and be themselves and the social conformist police stop them. You can't do that. You can't say that. You can't dress like that or act like that. And the man will be kowtowed, right? He'll be brought back in line. That is what we as men have to avoid. Stop being fucking conformists. right? And when you start going your own way, it feels good because now you're in fresh, open territory. You're not following that same trudgery day in and day out, being someone else's man, being someone else's vision of what you should be. Be your own man. Be your own vision. You know, why do you think the let's step it up. The biker mentality is so attractive to men. They finally had a fuck enough, and they get a Harley, right? Put a little oil in their hair, grab a shitty old leather jacket, throw on some fucking engineer boots, and just hit the fucking highway. And you stop playing by everyone else's rules. And that is pretty attractive to a lot of people. And it's a way, it's a lifestyle choice to get you out of the social rat race. You know, bikers are looked down on, they're dirty, they're this, they're that. People believe that they're hard-headed and therefore they quit fucking with them. They're tough men, they're brave men, they're strong men, they're mean, they're nasty, arrogant bastards, so no one fucks with them. You can do all of that as MGTow without putting the oil in your hair, without putting on a pair of boots, without hitting the highway for 3 weeks. You can be the man you want to be, and you can be a biker or you cannot. It's about being a man. And it's about not needing the crutch of society in order to get along and to make it through without taking the hits and the crashes that women and feminism will throw at you. Be that guy. Be your own guy. Be your own man. Like I said, I want to teach as well as encourage on here, as much as I can. But encouraging men to act like men, and then they can figure out, you can figure out, I continue to figure out how to be that man, because that man satisfies me. That's really who I'm looking at satisfying. And that reminds me of an old joke. The joke of a guy going to a whorehouse. And, he gets the girl back in the room after picking out which one he wants. And she gets naked and lays on the bed, and he tears his clothes off, and she looks at him, and she goes, "Oh my God." Right? And she notices he's got a little 1-inch dick. And she goes, "Who do you think you're going to please with that?" And he looked at her with fucking not a care in the world, and he goes, "Me. Right? I'm going to please me with that. You don't have to fucking please anyone else. You start with yourself. Please yourself. And if someone else enjoys you, they're along for the ride. Otherwise, who gives a fuck?" You gotta crash and burn before you can get up and learn from it and keep going. I learned great lessons from my sons. Today I learned a great lesson. When Luke crashed, he laid there for a few minutes, and I walked over and said, "Hey, you want a hand up?" He says, "No, I'm going to lay here for a minute and think about it." When you have a crash in life, you can hop up instantly, or you can sit there and fucking think about it. But you have to get up and you have to move on and do what needs to be done. It was a great lesson for me to learn. And I learn from my kids all the time. They're good young men. They're real men. Right? But they're young, so they make tons of mistakes. And I've always told them, learn from my mistakes rather than your own. You learn from yours the best. But if you can learn from others, their mistakes, learn from them. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was succumbing to the fear of what other people think. Believing I had to conform with others in order to be accepted. I don't need other people's acceptance. I need to accept myself. Believe in myself and act on my own behalf. When you start doing that, you're a man. You'll notice, watch what women do. They conform to each other's standards. They play their little social games. Right? When one gets out of line, they get the others back in. And you'll see this with feminists especially. If one woman, got a group of 10 women, one of them is particularly submissive or is being controlled by her man, and she probably likes it, they will shame her and give her guilt and tell her to act free and she doesn't need a man. And they'll start doing that, and they'll use social pressure to push that woman in their direction and away from what comes naturally to real women, and that is submission to a man. But women are submissive in general. And as such, they will submit to other women without the presence of a man. And that is why they're all being herded into feminism. Because one, feminism is demanding it. And two, men are not really men and they're not pushing back. They're not demanding, woman, get over here and be a woman and stop acting like those feminist cunts. Men are also failing. They're getting knocked around and they're falling down and they're crashing. And instead of getting up and getting back on the man horse, right, they're getting up and they're putting their head down and they're going back to where the women tell them to, where the feminist women tell them to be. So when you see that crowd and it starts cheering and raising its arm and saying, "Heil feminism," are you going to put your hand up? Or are you going to make the decision to be a man and be MGTOW? Go your own way. Right? Wake up in the morning, grab a handful of your own nuts and look in the mirror and say, "I'm the man. I have the penis." That is important, man. Every day, encourage yourself and let you know that only you matter in your life. Without you, you are nothing. You've got to be yourself. Don't be a robot. Don't be an automaton being someone else's bitch. Be a man. Right? When you fall off, you get back on that horse and you keep going. When you are MGTOW, you have freedom. Then you can decide what you're going to do with women, how you're going to do it with those women. But you've got to be a man first and foremost. And you can't be afraid of failure. And you can't let pain stop you. That's how I think about it. And that's my Christmas MGTOW thoughts. So Merry Christmas to you all. A lot more MGTOW ideas for videos I've got coming up. Different ways to discuss being a man, the world around us, how to deal with things. And I really appreciate you guys coming on board. If you haven't already, please click subscribe. Right next to it's a bell. Click that bell. It'll send you a message anytime I put new videos up. Click thumbs up. Okay? The more MGTOW videos get thumbs up, the more it'll make it to the suggestions, right? It'll become more popular on YouTube. And the more popular it is on YouTube in general, the more men will see it. The more men will start thinking it's okay to be your own man. It's okay to stand up and point at a bitch and say, "Bitch, shut the fuck up." Because men, even if they're betas, they get tired of hearing it. They know it ain't right. But socially, they think it's acceptable to let women be bitches and them to shut up. But the more MGTOW gets out there, the more it grows. It becomes its own movement. Men acting independent of social standards and acting like men. When your heart or your head tells you this is what men should do and you do it freely, then you are free. MGTOW is freedom. I have the penis. Semper Fi.